So let's get started. During the months of August and September, we had a study group where we've met at least once a week and kept our commitment to ourselves to pass this exam, the DA-100. We have rules to follow to stay in the group, including some challenges, prizes, members presenting a topic every week, amazing presentations, and delivering homework. I would like to start by thanking all of our panelists today that I like to call team members did the fantastic work we did together preparing and passing this Power BI exam. And now some of them who got certified are here to help you by sharing their experiences. Guys, who wants to start with introductions?
I can start if you like.
Okay.
So that's not my official picture.
I find a picture.
Yeah, I didn't have it, so I'll get you one. So, yeah. Yeah. So I am Mike Ford. I work for ABB. If you don't know who ABB is, you can think of them as like the GE of Europe. They're a big multinational company. So I work in the electrification division there. My official title is Data Solutions Leader, Business Data Solutions Leader. But that just means I kind of wear all hats when it comes to data analytics. So I work with our different business functions within my division to understand their data analytic needs. So we develop a lot of our solutions in Power BI. And coming into that business about 2.5 years ago, I guess, Power BI was fairly new at that point. And so we kind of had to quickly, learn the best we could kind of on our own how to use Power BI. But then within this year, there was more of a focus on, basically trying to make it to have a more formal training path within the company. And so I was tasked with kind of defining what that looks like. And part of that was becoming certified with Power BI. So I was fortunate enough. I was in I think, Greg, I was in your user group meeting. And I just inquired about, is anyone studying for the Power BI certification? And you shared Cecilia's study group with me. And that was just a tremendous resource. So I wanted to say thanks for sharing that with me, and Cecilia for, just for hosting the group. It was a great experience for me. You had study groups on, Saturday and Monday. I always made the Saturday meeting. And my experience with it was just, it really helped me stay on task. It was a great way to be held accountable, to just study on a regular basis, and being assigned topics that we would present, at the beginning of each meeting, really helped me kind of focus during the week to go through the learning path on Microsoft and to study the thing that I was going to be presenting. So it was like a 5-minute presentation each week where you just prepared a couple of slides in PowerPoint, worked on presenting that, and you basically worked on the topic and practiced on the topic that you were going to be presenting in Power BI. So that, coupled with kind of the independent study on going through the Microsoft learning path, really helped me succeed in passing the exam. That was my first official Microsoft exam that I'd passed. I passed some other certifications like ITIL and some project management certifications, but never anything from Microsoft. So that was a really good, experience for me to be able to succeed there. So thank you.
Awesome. Who's next? Right. Yay! Who wants
I can
to
go.
Okay.
I can go. So, Mike, thanks for the introduction. I think that's the strength of community, everybody being able to look out for each other, share knowledge, share information. So my name is Gregory Petrossian, Business Transformation Consultant at CSG Pro. That's just a lengthy term for I wave my hands and I do a lot of the business development for a company, and I run the Power BI, the Portland Power BI user group. And our firm, we have been focused on Power BI back when it was just a plugin in Excel. Our Portland user group has been around almost 5 years. And for me, being the guy that is has the, breadth of knowledge, but not the depth. This was something I wanted to be able to prove to myself, that, all these years working in Power BI and getting to, kind of at the high level architect solutions, work with clients until, our consultants that were the real developers would kind of take over projects. I just have a curiosity and wanted to get this certification. I love the tool. Excel was one of my first loves, and being able to dive deeper into Power BI was awesome. Hats off to Microsoft for putting together such an amazing set of free self-paced learning modules. I mean, I was absolutely impressed. Not many times I tell Microsoft they've done a great job, but this is one of them. And not only to, hats off to Microsoft, but also to Cecilia for just getting this group together and getting this gang together and keeping us all on our toes and passing the test. So,
yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah.
I'll go next. My name is George Squalachi. I'm from Michigan. I'm a career IT trainer. And for about the last 17 years or so, my focus has been on all things SQL Server, querying, database administration, database development, and especially the BI stuff, reporting services, integration services, and analysis services. And about 4 years ago, added to my list of SQL Server courses, had to start teaching Power BI, and immediately was completely fascinated by it. And that's when it was this big. And every month it grows and gets bigger and bigger. It's an ever expanding universe. And I find that both terrible and awesome. Both statements are true. And I knew that I had to pass the previous version of the Power BI exam and actually got behind. When you first teach a class, you're provisionally certified. And so just somewhere lost track and knew that I not only wanted to pass the original certification just to make good, but I also needed to sooner or later to pass the DA-100. So knowing of some inclination to procrastinate, I remember cruising through LinkedIn one day and I saw Cecilia's offer for the study group, and I thought, that is exactly what I need. I need some other people to really be moving in that direction. I had no idea how much work I would end up putting into the group. And for the homework and that and the preparing the presentation, it took a fair amount of work. The course that I teach for Power BI covers about this much material, and yet in order to prepare for the exam, we had to learn this much material. There were areas of the product that I just had not ever explored and things that I had not ever done. So I was very grateful for that. So grateful to Cecilia for offering and organizing. And then before the end of the study group, Greg, I can't remember, Greg, how you got railroaded into taking the test, but you decided, oh, what the heck, I'm just going to take it. So I don't remember the circumstances. You passed it.
I got antsy.
What's that?
I just got antsy.
You got antsy. Okay. I couldn't remember if your boss signed you up and said, oh, by the way, you're taking the test. I couldn't remember. But anyway, after you took and passed the test, you said, you guys, you're going to pass it. Just go for it. Well, immediately thereafter, I scheduled my 7778 exam, took that and passed it. It was my first remote exam, but unlike Mike Ford, that was my 100th certification exam.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
I am very acquainted with taking the exams, but that was my first remote one, and the remote ones are really different. And I had an absolute customer service nightmare experience the first time that I took it. I had a lot of problems and ended up complaining to Pearson VUE and ended up getting everything okay, and took and passed the test eventually too. Shortly thereafter, took and passed the DA-100.
Congratulations. That's
and
great.
Then also along the way, Kevin, you took the test, I think shortly after Greg did, and you were the same as Greg, like, look, just take the test, just take it. And so I had, you guys really gave me a lot of confidence to take the test, and I am very grateful for the whole experience. It moved me to get it done. So I actually got both Power BI tests passed.
Good job.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you, George.
Great, George.
Who's next?
I can give it a go. So my name is Mark Wheeler. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I work for Thermo Fisher Scientific. Been doing that as a contractor, and one of my goals by going through this was essentially to get certified and kind of position myself a little bit better as a full-time hire. And so I'm able to report I was able to do that in the last 2 weeks. So this effort has really helped me and the group and Cecilia's kind of creation of this. So if anybody gets that opportunity, I would encourage you to either put together a study group or join one. My background, so I've been finishing up a bachelor's degree. I've worked in IT for a long time before. In preparation for this, I have a background in Python, SQL, Tableau, and didn't start using Power BI until about November of last year. Got the consulting or contract job in January and just started trying to learn as much as I could learn within that time, picking up books and joining the Portland user group, which has been a great resource for me to kind of learn as well as network. I know Greg's kind of the channel I heard about Cecilia's group through. So yeah, I'm approaching it more now from the business side of it. So I work as a R&D portfolio data analyst. So outside of IT, kind of approaching it from this user-centric perspective. So it's been good. I've really enjoyed it, and I think this particular study group was kind of instrumental in kind of keeping me on track and focus. What I'd say is just going through the Microsoft learning paths were good. Do the labs, spend time in the labs. I think also one of the things I did was I did cutting and pasting of kind of check your knowledge questions. And that kind of served as a good review right before I took the test. I think the challenge that I would have liked to have been a little bit more prepared for was just scenario-based questions. I don't think there was a good resource that I or the group was exposed to kind of see how those questions would be presented. So thanks again to the group and Cecilia. Again, find the same opportunity if you can.
Yes, as Mark said, anyone can put together a study group. So you can join a study group or you can put together a study group. It's just about getting together, start simple if you need to, but yeah, get together, have an excuse to meet and prepare the exam. That's key, right? So yeah, let's finish the round of presentations and then we could move on to the experiences. Who wants to go next? Kevin or Ed?
Yeah. Ed, do you want to go?
No, go ahead.
All right, I'll go. Kevin Mason, good evening, everybody. Great to see our group back together. I think this group dynamic also is very important for the study group. And I also had some ideas about study groups later, so we'll chat about that later. Anyway, my background is I have been working with Power BI for about 4 to 5 years now. And unlike most developers, I actually started in the Excel world. And from Excel, I transitioned into Power BI and SQL. So for me, there was a learning curve, and I think that was reflective of how I studied as well. We'll talk about that later. So I've been an analyst for about 7.5 to 8 years, and out of those, I've been working with Power BI and SQL for about 4 years. So that gave me a pretty good background. I work at a biotech company called Tissue Tech. and they produce ocular medical devices. That's right now I'm helping drive the sales of the sales team during the pandemic. Anyway, that's my introduction.
We missed this, right? Every time that someone finished a presentation, we were like,
Yeah, that's right.
Ed.
Okay,
No.
I'm used to going last. So my name is Ed English. I'm from South Florida, same area as Cecilia. And I've been in IT over 10 years. I'm a senior programmer developer for Capgemini in North America. But I think that we can all fit into many different titles, analyst, business intelligence, some DBA stuff. I'm sure we all can relate to that. So I've worked with, over the past 5 years, I've worked with multiple data visualization tools, Domo, they're out of Utah. I've worked with Tableau, and I've worked with Power BI. And later on, I'll get more into more detail on, some of the stuff that I was working with to pass the exam, but Cecilia's group was a big help. That's all I have to say for now. We'll talk more later.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. All right. So yeah, I have just a very short overview for the exam for those who are new to it. So the DA-100 is the exam for analyzing data with Microsoft Power BI. And this is the exam, the only exam that you need to earn the Microsoft Certified Data Analyst Associate certification. The skills measured there are prepare data, model data, visualize data, analyze data, deploy and maintain deliverables. If you go to the browser with this link, where is this? I have it open somewhere. Let me find it. Okay. There it is. You see my browser, right?
Yes.
But it's empty. What's going on with Chrome? All right. So yeah, if you Google DA-100 certification, you will land here. And this is where you can schedule your exam. And as someone was saying in the chat, this is very useful. So you have to pick your country, right? I mean, the United States, and this is the cost for the exam. But if you were impacted by the COVID crisis, you may qualify to take the exam for $15. This is very useful. So check that out. And here again, you have the skills measured. This is the percentage, the content you will find in the exam. You can also download the exam skills outline. This is a PDF where you will find more detail about what's covered. Also notice that here it says that on September 24th, they updated. So be sure that you scroll down all the way. There you go. And start checking the content here. There's not much change. You will see that they added maybe something here about the configure automatic page refresh. Not many changes, but check that out. And also don't skip these disclaimers here, because this is not the definitive content. So you may find something that is not here. Chances are that it won't happen maybe, but keep that in mind, that this is not exhaustive as it says, and that usually they don't include preview features. So take in consideration these two disclaimers here. And today I was checking this page and I noticed this is new. They created finally the official practice test.
Oh, that is new.
So this wasn't available when we were in the study group, but MeasureUp has this fantastic tool. Yeah, the practice test they offer. If you need practice, I recommend this, but also check them here. I don't know what's happening with my internet connection today, but if you go to their website, they also offer these bundles where you can purchase the exam with an extra exam in case you fail. And you have that package, or you have the package with the practice test for $265. Well, this is a US price, right? Maybe you don't use the extra exam, but for some of us, it's like stress relief to knowing that you have a second chance. Sometimes it's just about the stress. And also here you will find, well, 2 ways to prepare. They recommend, of course, they have the paid instructor-led, but they also have the links to the Microsoft Learn, right? So yeah, that's there. Thank you, the person who is allowing people in. Let me go back to this. Yes, I have a comment about the Microsoft Learn. So preparation resources, this is my list of recommended resources for the exam preparation. And I wanted to say, use the Microsoft Learn as your guide to study. The content Microsoft included there is there for a reason. So they want you to know it. If you're new to Power BI, I will suggest that you to learn Power BI from a trusted trainer. If you can't and don't want to pay, believe me, you will find outstanding beginner content, but don't rely just in the Microsoft Learn if you're new to Power BI or if you're just a beginner. So these are my main resources. I will share the links after in case someone needs them. I use them all for the Power BI, for the old Power BI exam, as well as the new Power BI exam. And to me, it was enough. Of course, this is not all the resources. There are a lot of professionals out there with amazing content, but these are the ones that I trust and I recommend. And all of them provide free content and also paid training. So be sure to check them out and consider them. They are all 6 stars professionals. And with that, that's all I have. I would like to move to the members experience. So I have this just a guide, but if you want to expand, adapt, change, I would like for the members who passed the exam to share experiences. What do you think? And please start with your Power BI experience, right? Some of you already mentioned it, but.
I was last before, so I'll go first now.
Okay.
All right. Can I share my desktop?
Of course, yes.
Okay. So I put together, Cecilia has us trained. So we were putting together PowerPoints. This is just very short, I'll be very short. So bear with me for a second here. Can you see my desktop?
Yep.
Okay. So basically some exam details. Run your computer check before the exam, make sure you're ready, your internet speed's up to par and everything. We'll need to take pictures of a clean desk work area. Like George was saying, it's a lot different doing it remote. Total time was 3 hours. Actual exam time was 2.5 hours. Cecilia showed you where to go. If your company pays for the exam, you have to log in with your company email address so they get the credit. And the exam covers a wide range of topics. The case studies could be at the beginning or the end. You need to answer all the questions because you cannot go back later and review. It's pretty time consuming and you need to read those thoroughly and look for the requirements in the case study that matches the question. These are just some tips and tricks. Excluding the case study, if a question looks very complex and time consuming, what worked for me is I would mark it for review and come back at the end because the time is limited. I ran out of time, but I still managed to pass because I answered the easier questions first. Microsoft Learn has doesn't, you know, Cecilia went over Microsoft Learn with you. And here are some resources. Microsoft Learn Data Insights. This Learn Data Insights, I'm going to show you in 2 seconds here. This has free practice exams. This is a great site. I'm going to show you that. Cecilia's Weekend Power BI Study Group. And just so you guys know, I mean, I studied my butt off for a long time, and I found it to be difficult. Joe Homnick also has a study once a month study group. My own research and reading, a few years experience building my own reports, dashboards, YouTube, Enterprise DNA, and Pragmatic Works. These are all resources I use. And then You Will Pass. But if you don't take it personal. This website here, it's called learndatainsights.com. So they give you tests, and there's about, and the questions are constantly changing, and they grade you, you know, each test, practice test, but they have tests in every area: prepare, model, visualize, analyze, and you know, there might be 120 different questions in each area, and they constantly rotate through the questions, and then they give you the answers at the end. You know, you grade it. This was a great learning tool for me. It's not the same questions on the exam, but it's the same concepts. So I think you'll find that helpful. And how do I stop presenting? That's it for me, guys.
Wait, good job, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. So now everybody's intimidated because Ed had a presentation.
I don't have slides for sure.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It was
That's
awesome.
good.
Thank you. Let me put again the screen in case we need a guide. Who wants to share next?
I can go, Cecilia.
Okay.
Yep. So as far as Power BI experience goes for me, yeah, please leave this slide up because Ed, I'm not as prepared as you, so good job there. But yeah, Power BI experience for me, like I'd mentioned when I was doing the intro for myself, it's been about 2.5 years, I guess, since I started to use the tool. And I use it on a pretty frequent basis. So I would say that, you know, if you're new to Power BI and you're looking to take and pass the exam, it's possible, but I would just say that it might take a little more preparation if you don't have a lot of experience with the tools. So I'd say definitely go through the learning paths and the resources that people are sharing with you, especially the Microsoft Learning Path, because it's very thorough. They do a really good job of walking you through, you know, all of the things that you would need to know on the exam. Plus they did a really good job setting up the labs. So they set up like a lab environment for just about every module. And when you finish going through the module, you enter the lab, and then you get hands-on practice with what you've learned. So that was very, very helpful. And then I'd say in terms of preparation, let's see, were you new to, oh yeah. So I was new to Microsoft certifications, but not certifications in general, because I've got some project management certifications. My preparation journey was, so I did the study group, like we've talked about with Cecilia and everyone there. I went through all the modules within the learning path. I did that twice. I did all the labs twice. And on top of that, I did a lot of study kind of outside on my own. So that I used the resources that Cecilia recommended, like Kerbal. There's also another really good one called Enterprise DNA, and they have a lot of good material out there on YouTube. And a lot of their stuff is free as well. So I did as much as I could kind of on my own. I also practiced. So I found that, you know, not only with the stuff I do at work, but kind of outside of work, I found like these weekly challenges from different sites that you could go to that use free data sets. Like there's a place called Makeover Monday. You can go and you can do like a weekly challenge, Enterprise DNA has a weekly challenge, and you're just presented with a data set. And sometimes they give you like a brief of what you're supposed to create. Other times they just kind of leave it open to you to create something based on that data set. So I found that helpful because it just kind of got me into the tool, using it hands-on. So that's very helpful. I'd say another thing that's going to be important is, and you'll learn this as you go through the Microsoft Learning path, is it's going to be important for you to set, if you don't already have this, you're going to need to set up like a Microsoft developer account, because you have to remember that Power BI Desktop is free. You can download that for free. But then when you're finished creating your report, the rest of the things that you need to know about is when you publish that report into Microsoft service, or Power BI service, sorry. So that's where you learn how to create workspaces, how to manage workspaces, how to create apps, how you manage apps. When you set up row level security, half of it is doing that in the desktop, but then to see how that behaves and works, you got to publish it up to the Power BI service and kind of see how the security works out there. So setting up a free account if you don't have one is something you're going to need to do to get out there in Power BI service. The challenges that I encountered, and I think George mentioned this, so I did encounter some challenges actually getting into the exam. So I'd say, make sure you take the time to make sure your computer's ready and set. Make sure you clean your workspace. One mistake I made is I have 3 monitors in my my office, and so I'm always kind of looking around and I'm working on different monitors. When you take the exam, you can't have monitors. You can only have your laptop computer or your main computer. So I had to disconnect, take my monitors out of my room, connect again. So it's just stuff like that. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of time to make sure your workspace is ready to go. The other thing is getting into the exam, making sure you have the right, credentials to get in, your ID. I just had to present my driver's license, and that was sufficient enough. Once you're in the exam, I'd say make sure that, like what Ed shared, it's a 3-hour exam. I finished in about 2.5 hours. One mistake I made was I got to the end of what I thought was the exam, and I went back and I thought I had plenty of time to go back and check my answers, which I did. But then I got to the point where I was ready to submit it, and I clicked on finish or something like that. And then my case studies were at the very end of the exam. And I had plenty of time to get it done, but I was kind of caught off guard because I thought I was done and I really wasn't done. So just make sure you leave yourself plenty of time at the end to review, and then take anything else that you might think that you're done, but you're not quite done. Study resources was kind of what I'd mentioned. The learning path from Microsoft was great. Kerbal, Enterprise DNA. There's also another good one out there that I found was useful, and it's by Parker Stevens. He has a website called BI Elite, and he has a DA-100 prep course as well. I signed up for it, and you can basically, if you sign up, it's free for 7 days, and you got to pay after that. So I signed up for it, and I blew through it in a week, and then I just discontinued my membership so I wouldn't have to pay for it. But Parker Stevens, BI Elite's another good resource as well. Anything else? I'd say, if you prepare, I'd say you're going to do fine. Don't be stressed out about it. I was kind of stressed because I'd never taken a Microsoft exam before, but I felt like the study group with Cecilia and everybody that I worked with there, that was a really good experience for me, because I was doing a lot of this stuff on my own. But just working with other people, that definitely helped me, because you help each other kind of along the way, and you're kind of there to support each other. So if you can have a study group like that, and that experience is definitely worth it, and I'd do it again if I could. So that's me. It's my experience.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Who wants to go next? Who wants to share? George, you're muted.
All righty. I'll go next. As far as Power BI experience, I had a decent amount of experience. I had about 4 years, but it was mostly within the little container of the classroom material that I taught and anything else that I experimented with somewhere along the way. So I had a pretty good foundation of experience. As far as certifications, I was very experienced with the certification testing process. And I want to give everybody a link in the chat box. This is a PowerPoint presentation I put together called Strategies for Passing Certification Exams. And one of the things that it has in it, it has a slide after slide of what some of the question formats look like. Like Mike was saying, I think all of my scenario questions were at the very end. And keep in mind, not everybody gets a great night of sleep the night before. You might have to take your exam in the afternoon, so you're already kind of tired. And then you've been looking at your screen intently for an hour and a half or 2 hours, and then you get to the study of the scenario questions. And if your proctors are like mine, if your eyes wander away from the camera, they will come on the chat and they will call you out.
Yeah, I got called out. Yep.
Yeah, so they are serious when they say they will be watching you. So no getting up, moving around, no background noise, nothing. So you have to really plan for that when it comes to the location where you're going to take your test. I would say preparation-wise, if you go through all of the Microsoft Learning material and any other resources that are linked to along the way, just in your travels, you're probably going to be in pretty good preparation shape. If you go through every bit of the Microsoft Learning path, you'll probably be fine. Now, I had the 70-778 exam. That was the earlier Power BI exam, even though our study group was for the DA-100. I wanted to prepare and take both. I found actually they were pretty different exams. Now, the 70-778 was my first remote exam, and when it calls on you, so like Mike was saying, I think you have to make sure your workstation is set up appropriately. They give you a test that you can run ahead of time. That's very useful. I had done all that, but then you have to use, they ask if you either want to use an app or a link in order to get to the location where you have to take some pictures. And I can't remember, I think I used the link, which then opened up Firefox on my Android phone. And I didn't know it at the time. It was much grief, but later on I found out Firefox did not support this. And when I tried to call customer service, I got nowhere. They escalated and finally left me hanging for like 30 minutes while my exam start time had already passed. This is major stressful, and I'm experienced at taking tests. I've been through it literally 100 times. So the next time around, when I had my exam rescheduled, it gave you the option, once again, do you want the link or do you want the app? Well, I took the opposite option and I opened up the factory browser, my Samsung browser on my Android phone, and that worked. But that wasn't because customer service helped me. I stumbled on that. So just beware. You might want to have the customer service number kind of handy from your testing provider, like out of arm's reach, just in case you hit some issues. Do whatever you can to try and reduce your stress the day or two before. Around my house this many times of taking the exams, everybody knows I'm just a little bit prickly a couple days before the exam. Just kind of leave me alone. Let me just stay in my office and I get better.
Yeah, another thing that happened to me was, I'll just say this, is that sometimes I found myself kind of talking to myself about trying to like go through, the questions and the answers and trying to figure out which one was the best answer. And my proctor caught me on that, and they said, you can't talk out loud. So that not only can you not look around but speaking out loud, because they don't know if you're talking to somebody. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
And I recall
add to that as well. Sorry, George. Just
no,
I got called out for touching my mouth because I like sitting with my mouth and thinking. And literally after all of that time, it was difficult to not touch my mouth and sit there and focus on the freaking scenario. That's my 2 cents in that. I'll be quiet for now.
I'll add 2 more things. They say that you must complete the exam in one sitting. You may not get up. And if you ask if you can go to the bathroom, they will say no. That's a promise. One other thing, for those that are new to the scenario questions, they're detailed and they provide this many facts. Like you have a server with 64 gigs of RAM and it has this much storage, and that has nothing to do with the scenario. Do not read all of the details of the scenario. You'll want to read the questions first to get an idea of what pieces of information you have to collect. I believe it was on the 7-778, I took all of the exam time. And on the DA-100, I think I could have, but I did not. At a certain point, I think I said I had answered every question, and I thought, I'm pretty sure I answered enough right to pass, and just ended the test. That's all I have.
Awesome, amazing. Yeah, great tips. And that's why the practice tests from Measure Up are very useful, right? You can like have a very similar experience as in the exam, and you can set time and everything, so you can speed up your answers. That's also important, that you don't overthink and stay in the same question, thinking and thinking. If you don't have the answer, just mark it for later and move on to the next one. Don't spend much time, because you will find out that maybe you have 50 questions and you run out of time. And maybe it's not that you don't know the answers, it's that you didn't have the right time and you don't pass. So that could happen. Who wants to go next? Kevin.
I'll go. I pulled up my thank yous after I passed the exam, so I can be prepared like Ed somehow. Anyway, I think that it was Greg that mentioned that he didn't go over the question the second time. And so when I plunged into the test, I remembered that advice. And I think that it was important to also mention that if you just go through the questions the first time and you're confident in the first answer, you may not need to go over them again, because once you just make that decision, there's probably not a better decision you can make a second time. A lot of those questions are phrased that way. Your first guess is likely right. Don't approach it that way, because there could be 2 similar functions, 2 M functions or 2 DAX functions, and you'll need to know each one of them. So don't guess, but definitely go over all of the functions. So anyway, I'll just go down the list that Cecilia has. To give you a little bit of background, I was also on this magic train that Mike and George were on, and I never met Greg before, but as soon as I met him and I saw that he was doing the Portland Power BI group, I was like instantly addicted, because this virtual stuff is all new. And before, I'm also South Florida. Before we talked about the study group, but we could never organize it. So huge kudos to Cecilia for putting it together. If you are going to start a study group of your own, we probably have some extra tips later. One of the things that I thought that would be a good idea to introduce is if you are going to do it, make sure you focus on the homework, because the week flies by very quickly on weekend groups, because we did hours on Saturday morning, and that means that you're either doing homework on Friday night or you're doing it on Saturday morning before the meeting, and that's not an optimal way to learn. You want to spend a few days on the material, the one that you're going to present, and then maybe a couple of others, just so that you can go over them. And that way, you can be a sponge and an expert in one area, and then when I hear George or Greg talk about it, they also did the same homework as I did. So they were able to absorb the material and then regurgitate it, so they were able to learn better, and I was able to learn from some of their tips, and we shared some of the things back. And another kudos goes to Greg. He told me to pay attention to one of the things he was talking about, trend lines, and I'll let him talk more about that. But to kind of further talk about this list, my Power BI experience, like I was mentioning earlier, is from an analyst perspective, which is a little bit rare nowadays. And so I was working in Excel. I needed to automate things in Excel through Power Query, and Power Query was not able to handle the load. And so I was working for a manufacturing company. And what we were doing is we were doing an extrapolation of materials, which resulted in a large data set. So Excel limited itself to what, I think 1.1 million rows, something like that. So my managers were not happy, and that's how we kind of transitioned into Power BI and SQL. And so I started getting more heavy into SQL because first I was massaging the data source, and then making that data source into something that's a manager could either evaluate or to use. So kind of got introduced into two worlds there. One of the challenges with that is that learning about primary and foreign keys is also yes, Alex Powers is correct that it was 32-bit Excel. So so one of the challenges was to kind of figure out the primary and the foreign keys and how they interacted for data modeling. And so one of the things that I don't see very often, which is something we're going to segue into real quick. Alex Powers just posted a guide 2 days ago. I'll try to find that picture, but it has data modeling is like the second step or the third step, and that's like super important for Power BI, because coming from Excel world, I'm so used to concatenating keys and creating lookups for ad hoc analysis and getting away with that. In Power BI world, it's not going to work that way. That's one of the challenges to explain to your boss as well. And also, there's a learning curve that you have to get over the hump where you understand relational databases. And so I think that data modeling is very, very important about that. Was I new to certifications? Yes. I've never done a certification before. It was very intimidating to even think about. And also I have an SQL certification that I would like to grab because I've been involved with Power BI for such a long time that SQL is almost second nature now. So since it was the first certification, hearing from Greg, who took the plunge first because he got antsy, gave me the confidence to also go and do it. And what I want to do, what I want to do is I want to try what Greg did, and if I failed, I didn't care because that money was a good investment and I spent enough time to study for it. So I went and I took the test a little bit early, and I was surprised at how I was able to navigate through the test because of what we did in the study group. And the particular things that we did in the study group was we reviewed every single module, and then you had every single subject matter expert that studied their module present it. We talked briefly after our meetings, and that was also very useful. So if you don't do your homework, there's going to be a huge gap of information that you're not either going to be able to discuss or you're not going to be able to present. Preparation journey. My first 4 years were very light as well. I did manufacturing reporting, and we did that extrapolation. So in terms of Power BI and the gigantic beast that it is, to my managers, it was just a pretty visualization. But to me, as I was learning SQL, I understood that I can pretty much do anything in the system. That's also some of my challenges where I need to be held back from putting everything into Power BI because I want to automate all things. But you know, that's another challenge as well, is where you decide, okay, I'm not going to put this report into Power BI. I am going to keep this report ad hoc, and I'm not going to fight with my boss about not sending him or her the report. And so basically, that was pretty much everybody who's here that I'm expecting that you're a newbie or you're thinking about the study group. You guys came to the right place. Challenges. In terms of challenges, biggest challenge is always DAX and data modeling. That was the best ones for me. So now I have prepared, I'm going to press enter on a message that I'm going to send you with all the people I thanked. And so Cecilia was the first one that I thanked because she did an amazing job organizing this group. But here's all the rest of the people that I thanked. And what I want to mention is Udemy.com has some really good classes. Reza Rad, I love that guy. And he has answered one of my questions personally. And if he does that to you, that's crazy. And he does that. And his education is amazing. Chris Dutton does a really great job explaining things. And there's another guy who not many people mention is Ian Littlejohn. And he does a really good job with explaining data modeling. And so Ruth, who's going to do the presentation next time, I'm going to make sure that I am here because, everybody loves Curveball. And I think she was one of the pioneers of video logging about Power BI. Sam McKay from Enterprise DNA, that man has taught me how to do cumulative sales. Would have never figured it out because I didn't understand how DAX flowed. Yeah, I do have the book. I tried to read it. It was very complicated. But being here and going through the modules of the material that's posted online on Microsoft has really made a big difference. So I shared my study resources. You got to hear about my experience. A last thing that I will share. So I think that one of the key components in keeping yourself motivated to be able to study for this exam is to get rid of the fear that you're not going to pass. So one of the things that was the biggest challenge for me is just that fear, because even with a base knowledge of Power BI, you're still going to get a score, and you're going to get an assessment of your knowledge in every section. And so based on my test, I know that I need to go and study up on some visualizations that I didn't do well on and some DAX. So it gives you some kind of a feedback. So basically what I'm trying to say is even if you don't know absolutely everything, knowing 50% of the way on a lot of the questions will get you to the answer because you'll know the content. That's everything for me.
Good job. Good job.
Amazing. A lot of tips. Who's next? Greg, Mark?
Yeah, I can go. I think I tried answering some of those questions before, so I just kind of reflecting on some of what I've heard. So again, my experience specifically in coming to Power BI is I started a year ago specifically with Power BI. So if you're coming to this without years worth of experience, you can get there. I would say that I was lucky in that as I started, I was actually working with it every day. So I think that's important. Figure out whatever way you can to get the experience, either by incorporating it into your existing work or figuring out how you can, at least on a weekly basis, work with the tool. I think I shared some of the things on just what did I do, just go through the learning path, go through the labs. You're going to get a good feel for the tool there. The other piece that I haven't heard a lot about is spend some time in the Power BI service itself. It's not all about the desktop component. You want to get that exposure because you're going to get questions about the service and how things work there. And if you're spending your time, I think even in the labs, their focus is on using the desktop component versus the service. And so I just encourage you to figure out how to get some time up on that service. Let's see what other notes. So just from my experience in preparing for the homework, I was in the Monday class, and some people might be dissuaded from taking a Monday class, figuring, well, I can, you know, it's easier for me to do it on the weekend. For me, the scenario worked out that through the week, I was able to spend just maybe half-hour increments, a couple of nights a week, just working through the learning piece, another 45 minutes on top of that, working through a lab. I'd come to Friday, I'd prepare my questions, spend about half hour, 45 minutes. And then on Sundays, I would put together my presentation and spend a couple hours doing that. And come into Monday and feel like I was well prepared, and I had time to absorb a lot of that information. So don't necessarily think, oh, I'm going to try and get that Saturday class, because actually I think that's what I applied for, the Saturday working session, and I got into the Monday one, which just worked out just great for me. What else? Yeah, just the homework, do your homework. And I think Cecilia also took our questions and rolled them into a tool. So we were actually able to see that in practice, use that as a practice resource. So you could maybe at the end, Cecilia, speak about what tool you use there and how other people can, you know, get access to that type of resource or develop it for themselves. So yeah, let me see what the questions were again, see if I missed anything. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thanks again to the group.
That leaves me.
Yes, Greg.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Attaboy, Mark. All right, so for me, Power BI experience. Before taking the test, you know, I had a lot of exposure to Power BI. You know, I work at a consulting firm that specializes in analytics. And so, you know, when I joined, you know, a lot of my background was in Excel. And so it was about 3 years ago. So I have been working in Power BI since then. Again, for my role, I'm very surface level, but just very curious and continually, you know, want to learn more around analytics. A lot of my exposure to that I think helped out with the test was around data warehousing. There's a book that I always recommend, the Data Warehousing Toolkit, understanding just why you are connecting to data, modeling, cleaning, you know, shaping, and before even visualizing data. I think it's important just knowing all of those layers and why you're doing what. And I was able to apply, you know, that type of knowledge, just business intelligence, overall knowledge, along with just my exposure to being within, you know, working with the tool, and that was very helpful. Was I new to certifications? What I did was I took the Power Platform Fundamentals test just to experience what it was like taking, you know, a virtual Microsoft certification test. You know, that was very basic level understanding of the Power Platform family. You know, Power BI is one of the tools of the tool set. I thought it was good just kind of having a broad-based knowledge on Power Platform. So whether it's the Power Platform Fundamentals or any of the other fundamental tests, highly recommend just at least taking it and just experiencing what it's like having a proctor just watching your every move, breathing down your neck, making sure that your training space or your test taking space is all good. And so having that experience was helpful. But then taking the DA-100 was one of my more grown-up certifications. Is the first grown-up certification I'd say I've taken. And so, I think a lot of what everybody else has shared before me, just trusting your gut, going with the first answer you see, don't second guess yourself, feel comfortable. Being comfortable, I think, is really important, for those that buy the second test, if you feel like if you fail, you have nothing to lose. You just having that, less anxiety, I think really helps with the test. Preparation journey. For me, I'm not the type of person that can sit there in a classroom or follow along training sets. I need real world, examples. That is the best way that I learn. So, my preparation journey, along with the DA-100, study group, I think I'm referencing a lot of just my past experience. I think doing things like hackathons, working with public data sets, just kind of dinking around and understanding, applying the concepts that I had learned from, Dashboard in a Day. And I think Dashboard in a Day, everybody should go through that, whether they're doing self-paced or going through one of the partner-led trainings. And then, applying a lot of those concepts into these public data sets, just around something I was passionate about. I think, I'm a very passion-driven learner. And so, for you, if this is something you want to do, and, I think you just kind of have to let your curiosity take the best of you. You can pretty much apply data analysis to anything in your life. There's probably a public Power BI data set for that. And so I would suggest, really understanding how dirty a lot of data is and why you're going to clean it up. So I also wrote a blog post, and I already put the link earlier, but I'll just throw it in here again. These are just kind of my points as I went through. And so then challenges. For me, I think the challenge really was around some of the very nitty gritty, capabilities type questions. Of course, Microsoft is going to throw some, curveballs. They're going to ask you, like, what is the second icon from the right in the visualization pane? Fortunately, you don't get a lot of very specific questions like that. I think Kevin had mentioned something about trend lines. The analytics or the lollipop icon, where you can create trend lines. I remember I had just researched a little bit about it and got a very specific couple questions on it. Again, you only need 75 or 80% to pass. And I was like, well, if this is the one question I missed, so be it. You're going to get some of the hard random ones, but you're also going to be able to cover, I think, a majority of the questions. So just, again, believe in yourself. So study resources, again, something that, it was all about hands-on learning for me. It was all I did was Dashboard in a Day and the DA-100 learning paths. Just took a lot of experience as well from working in the business intelligence field, dating myself almost, only 5 years now. But with that, I just felt good to go. As everybody said, I was really antsy. I think we were halfway through our modules, and I just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to take the test and see what happens. And, just based off of basic concepts of business intelligence. And again, what I was saying was knowing and understanding the different layers in Power BI. Why are you connecting to data? Now that you've connected to data, how are you transforming it? Why are you transforming it? How are you cleaning it? Why are you modeling it? What does DAX do? How is this calculation engine running? And how are these queries running? And how does DAX differ from Power Query? What does a calculated column differ from DAX? And then, when you import, load data into the visualization layer. You know, what's going on in the visualization layers. Once you understand the mechanics of all these layers, what they're working with each other, you can pretty much figure out how these questions are, you know, really structured. And you can, you know, infer your way through a lot of the questions. I think George gave a great advice where, hey, you're going to read these case studies and like 70% of what they're telling you is extraneous information. You know, just read what you need and just answer from what you believe is what you need to, you know, get out of what the question's asking you. Anything else I would like to share? You know, I think it's amazing that we are in this world where there's so much virtual training. There's so many free resources. Not only are, you know, big tech firms like the Microsofts and the Googles of the world investing in up-leveling, you know, the masses. There's also partners and thought leaders that are exposing a lot of their training, either free or paid. And so really it's on you to just get it done and do the training. All the resources there are at your fingertips. You just have to be self-motivated. And I think with the right mix of motivation, curiosity, passion, I mean, the world's your oyster and you can pass any of these certification tests. So with that, I'm off my soapbox. Good luck, everybody.
Amazing. Thank you, Greg. Okay, so I think we reached the Q&A portion of the meeting. And I have here, I don't know, because my memory right now is overwhelmed, but this is what Microsoft Mark was referring to. So every week, the members of the study group had to submit their homework before the meeting. It was mandatory. And this was 2 questions for the module we were studying. And we put together like almost 200 questions, right? And this has to be improved, of course, but this was put very quick just to have something to practice, because we used Microsoft Teams and we had a tab with this Power BI report where people could go through each question, and we had every module here, and you have to think the answer, and when you're ready, you show the answer. This is okay, my computer is collapsing right now, but I think we can make this available if we improve it. We can make this public and put it somewhere so people can use it for practice. Very good questions, amazing work from the members. And well, I wanted to show this, but my computer is very slow right now, so I'm sorry. Let's move to the Q&A, and you can use
Cecilia, Cecilia, if you want to put it in the chat to one of us, we could try sharing it.
Oh yes, but I need to improve that report, so I can yeah, I can embed it maybe in a website or something. Right now it's raw. So guys, if you have any questions for the members here, or if you want to share something, now is the time. So shoot. Raise a hand to unmute yourself, or use the chat if you don't want to speak. Ed, you raise your hand.
That was a mistake. I meant to hit show participants. Sorry.
I had a question.
Yes.
Do you get the result throughout the exam? Do you get it to the end after each module, or how does it work, the actual exam?
Yeah, you get it. You get the results at the end of the exam, so you know right away how you scored for each module, and then if you passed, basically.
Okay, not on each question, which is good, so you don't have to stress. Is there some type of a timer that lets you know that you're 50% of the way through and 80% of the way through?
Yeah, you have like breadcrumbs, and you can see the time being elapsed. Honestly, you're given way more time than you need. I think I was able to finish with like 30 or 45 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
I think that totally depends on the person. I think Greg, yeah, I have a lot of tests behind me, and I think you went through it probably quicker than the average person. And I'll bet you just have a naturally better test taking ability than some of the others. And one other thing, your test, basically you can't have any other programs or windows open, and you can't even see the system clock, but you can see in the upper right corner how much time you have left in the exam. So you have an idea. And by the way, they won't let you wear a watch.
Okay.
No watch. And especially not a smartwatch. So I remember, I think I forgot to take mine off. It's a dumb watch anyway. It doesn't have anything fancy, but they asked me to take it off. So took it off, threw it. So, but you know how much time is left.
Are they going to ask you a picture of the room itself if you have a television on the right and you're doing a thing in your bedroom? That's where I have my home office.
Yes, you have to take a picture front and back and both sides and underneath the desk if you have like space underneath your desk. And everything has to be like an arm's length, more than an arm's length away. Cell phone more than an arm's length away. All of your other resources, notes, papers, books.
Okay, so if I have a bed and a television at the corner, that's fine.
That should be fine off, of course.
Okay.
They'll make you unplug everything in sight.
Okay.
Great. I see Emmanuel, he has a question. Unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
I wanted to just ask, like, how did you structure your? I saw a lot of people say anywhere between 10 weeks to 2 months was the study time that they took in order to be able to get prepared. What was in that 10 weeks? How did you structure and pace yourself so that you were able to take in the information, do the homework, practice, etc.?
Who wants to take it?
For me, I mean, just personally, what I try to do is I try to do one module per week. I think there's it's 5 or 6 modules. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but if you do that, then within 5 to 6 weeks, you've gone through the learning path once. And this is for Microsoft Learn, basically. That's what I did. That was kind of my guide. And then from there, if you finish it, say in 6 weeks, then you've got some extra time to go back and kind of practice on the areas where you are kind of fuzzy and you don't understand as much. You can go back and do them again. Like what I did, I went through the entire learning path from beginning to end once. And then I went back and I did all the labs again. So as part of the learning path, they had these labs. And then when I finished all that, I went back and I did the labs again, just to kind of refresh my memory. And then I practiced kind of on my own with like what Greg was saying, with like public data sets. I would use those to create things. And it just kind of gave me an opportunity to look at other resources outside of Microsoft Learn to try to, or get exposure to different things that I might not have picked up within the learning path itself. So that's what I did.
I highly suggest, as you're going through the learning path or a module, as you're reading it, if there's terms you don't understand, there's concepts that might be new to you, search 3 or 4 different things on Google and just dive into it. Use Wikipedia and dive into those concepts. The more diverse your understanding, and just making sure that you're really picking up what the learning path is putting down, all the better.
Another question I had too, that now that you got the certification, and I'm assuming some of you guys got the certification in order to be able to complement your current position. Have any of you guys took the certification in order to obtain a new position? And if so, how do you market yourself with the newfound skill? Like, what would be some good things to put in your portfolio in order to make yourself a candidate for a data analyst or a Power BI user for work?
That's a great question. And in my blog post, one of the things I mentioned is the certification, all it's going to really do is differentiate you from somebody who doesn't have a certification. But the more you can do, if you're job seeking right now, one of my big suggestions was, maybe offer up hours or your services to a nonprofit or to an organization that might have some data that you can work with. Try and get something that, or even just use public data, build a Power BI report and publish it on the data stories gallery. So there's a Power BI community, there's on the Power BI community forum, there is the data stories gallery, and then you have actual work product that you can put on LinkedIn or on your resume. Not only would everything you learn in DA-100 apply, but if you look up, data visualization best practices from people like Edward Tufte or Stephen Few, and build a really nice UI or UX type report, I think that speaks volumes. The fact that you can have a work product, whether it's something you did for fun, whether it's something you did for donated time for a friend or family, I think that speaks volumes to a recruiter. So let me find that link.
Yeah, I think just to add to some of that, so part of my goal and objective in going through this was to essentially boost my profile in order to get a full-time position, because I've been doing contracting for about 1.5 years. So I essentially, once I got that, just put it out to my LinkedIn community. I think previously, as far as showing work product with Tableau, I've used GitHub to essentially take snapshots of my work and any type of coding related stuff, put it up there, and add that to your resume so that people can kind of see that, okay, you've done some things in this area.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
and
you.
just to add one more thing to that, when you do get your certification and when you pass the exam, you'll get a link basically that shows that you've achieved the exam. So, it's a link that you can put out on LinkedIn. It's a link that you can share with other people just to show people that you've done something to differentiate yourself from others that are using Power BI. So in addition to, kind of showcasing work that you're doing, which is great, you can also showcase that certification through that link as well.
Okay. Then if
some people take it because it's a requirement, like myself. If I wanted, it was a requirement for me to keep my job, not to find another job.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, forming study groups and stuff like that, like how do you, because that's one thing, like I have what it takes to take in the information on my own, but also would feel like I would benefit from a study group. And I'm not, I'm sort of a introvert in that regard, so I'm not good at being able to gather people together for, a common goal, which is to study for this thing. So like, if I wanted to do that and get out of my comfort zone, like what would be some approaches? Like how would where would I go to look for people that are looking to achieve this goal with me?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So I'm thinking you could probably join a local user group and find a whole bunch of like-minded individuals, or join the Power BI community forums and just see contacts there. Maybe post, hey, I'm interested in putting together a study group. Who else would be interested?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yes, agree. So I have here is a question from Mark. Are you aware of any virtual study groups? I am not aware. I don't know if any one of you are. Okay, so I guess no. If someone knows about any study group, please share.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Please.
So as I was mentioning in my presentation, Gold Coast User Group has a DA-100 study group. We just had a meetup last week. He holds them once a month, and Gold Coast User Group, Joe Homnick. But basically what he does is he goes over the questions from that website that I showed you. You know, that's all.
Okay. And I see a hand. Navid, you want to unmute?
Hey everyone, thanks for having this session. So I found it quite helpful for me. So what I want to know about, like, do we have any platform where I can really give a test, and after submitting all of my answer, I would get the proper answers and also the explanation of my wrong answers? Do you
So
have any
like a
resource like
practice test, you mean?
yeah,
So
more
yeah,
likely.
the measure up test should be like that, but it's a paid one. Measure up is very, very good at those practice tests, so it's a good investment. And I see Teneika, and also I think Ed shared the same link, learningdatainsights.com. They have a free Power BI test, right?
Yes.
I see the link in the chat.
LearnDataInsights.com.
Yes. So. Yeah, in the past, I want to share this experience because when I was studying for the 778 some time ago, there was almost nothing, right, to practice. And I found some practice tests that some people in the community put together, and I found wrong answers in those tests. It can happen. I mean, I'm not judging. What I'm saying is if you feel that the answer is not okay, trust yourself, because maybe it's not right? So don't trust it 100%. When you find free resources, that can happen.
Cecilia, I found that on some of the paid for exam preparation tools. Some of the answers were just outright wrong. So be prepared. You may actually be right if you disagree with the test prep software.
Yes, trust your feeling. If you feel something is not right, go and verify. You may be right. I see itexams.com. I don't know that page, but I see resources in the chat. Anyone else has any? Let me see. I think there are raised hands. Tom, you want to ask something? You're muted. We can't hear you. You're still muted. Let me see.
Okay.
Oh,
now
there
I'm
you
good,
are.
right?
Yes.
Okay. I've taken a number of the MOS certification exams and CompTIA, and in both cases, you can mark a question for review and come back to it. It's never submitted until the whole test is over with. Is that the case in this 3-hour gargantuan exam that I'm faced with?
Yes and no. Your time, you can come back to it, but your times, you can still run out of time.
Well, I know that. That's the case in all these exams, but you don't make a final commitment until you're done. You're done with, and you push the button. Is that correct? In other words, there aren't sections where, okay, this section I'm making a final.
There are sections like that.
There are sections.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they let you know.
Right.
Okay. There is like some disclaimer or something that says you won't be able to review this question later. It says.
Yeah, it seems like the scenario-based questions is where that's kind of shaped around. I remember starting out with 2 scenario sections, and I finished them up and moved on.
Kind of a follow-up question is 3 hours. It's like taking the law school exam or a CPA. I mean, this isn't typical of Microsoft exams, is it? I mean, it's certainly not. The MOS exams are 50 minutes long, 50.
Was it 3 hours? I think to me it
That-
was 2
I think-
hours.
2.5 hours, but the session is 3 hours.
Yeah,
Yeah, they give you
three
time
hours.
for commentary. It is 2.5 hours though. So the Moss exams are they're a different format, no doubt.
Yeah.
Having taken many Windows Server exams and SQL Server exams, in addition to the Power BI exams, 2.5 hours is a fairly typical allocation. And there will be some of you test takers, you will need all of that time. Not everybody will, but some of you will need all of it.
And it goes by fast.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
I see a question from Kiati. No, where is it? Okay. How many scenario-based questions were asked? Is this something that we can disclose? I think that it is not fixed, right?
I think for me, I had 3.
Yeah, I mean, you will have for sure a scenario-based question. That's for sure, but it's not the majority of the exam, at least. And those are the questions that you may not be able to go back and review. Oh, again, they will tell you when you can't go back.
They're long. They're significant.
Yeah, to me, it was overwhelming, all the explanation, right? There was so much content on the explanation.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, the design, it was difficult to go fast. I see, Tom, you have another question? No? Oh, I see your hand still. They are all multiple choice answers, 4 or 5 answers. Yeah, you have multiple choice, you have drag and drop, right? That is something that we can find, I think, in the Microsoft website. They give you examples of how the questions are. What do you say, guys?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, multiple choice, fill in the blank. There might have been some true false questions as well, but it's mainly multiple choice and some fill in the blank, like drag and drop type thing. And I saw someone ask about DAX. Surprisingly, at least my experience was there was less DAX on the test than I thought there was going to be. So I remember I spent quite a bit of time looking over DAX, calculations, functions, and it's helpful, but there was less DAX than I thought there was going to be. I'll just say that.
Teneka is saying, should we try to focus on what really matters? Like, is there a lot of fluff in those types of questions?
I don't know if there's fluff. I think go through the scenario, the learning, and you have to build some foundation in the tool and understand how you're going to apply it to the question and how you're going to get to the heart of what they want. As far as fluff, there are things that could look like they work as the answer, but you really have to reason through it to pick the right answer. I don't know if there's a lot of fluff.
Yeah, I think, George, you mentioned something about reading first the question and then the rest. That is a good technique.
Yeah. And getting back to that, I don't want to mislead anybody. There are some questions in the test about DAX. I was just trying to say that, you need to know DAX, you understand it, but I was saying there would be more. Kind of the reason I'm saying that is because I was preparing for the 778 exam before I joined the DA-100 study group. So there was a lot of focus in the study guide that I bought on DAX. So I just assumed that would kind of carry over. But
that's because they combined the Excel, they combined everything into this. So they, they had the Excel portion of it separate on the 778.
Yeah.
I see Matthew. Want to unmute?
Yeah, so I'm kind of reading through the learning objectives. It doesn't seem like they are as intense in Power Query as kind of I've been preparing for. I mean, there's so much to do in Power Query and so many things you can do to, manipulate your data. And obviously, Microsoft is doing a great deal to continue to enhance it. So, what's the group's guide on that? I mean, is it really complex manipulation of data, or is it more connecting and data modeling and DAXing?
Matthew, I would say don't sweat the Power Query stuff. Whatever you can get your hands on to practice through it. It was a 70-778 exam prep book. That's sort of the cheap way to go through the preparation. And I thought the amount of Power Query manipulation that it went through was excellent. So a $25 or $30 book is a whole lot less than $100 exam prep software and a $2,000 course. That's an idea.
But you definitely know your column distribution and column statistics, and you want to know that portion of it.
Yeah.
The query editor.
Don't say too much.
What they do. Well,
but I mean, you can do really
a little bit of everything, really.
You can do really advanced stuff with parameters and functions, and it gets very, very complex if you go to, I mean, even Kerbal Ruth at Kerbal goes through some pretty extensive parameters and functions, and it can get very, very complex. I'm just kind of wondering how detailed and how knowledgeable you have to be about that level of manipulation.
So I think, I think for me, I remember 3 distinct Power Query questions, and it was all around, okay, how do you manipulate this text? So you have to have some fluency, I would say, with the syntax and how to apply it and reason your way through it. But I do remember Power Query questions.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you'll encounter. I think that, again, getting back to the Microsoft learning path, that gives you a pretty good idea of the types of questions that you'll get on the exam. So there's stuff on there for Power Query. There is stuff for DAX. There is stuff for, it basically everything that you encounter in the learning path. If you can go through that and understand it, at least for me, that was my experience. If I understood it really well, then I felt like it really paid off when I got into the exam.
I'll chime in on this too, if you don't mind. Matthew, it sounds like one of my issues going into this exam was a lot of fear of complexity. You're not taking an ETL class where you're going to be asked to transform data in a crazy way. And one of the conceptual ways that you can approach this is you can pretend to be in a position where you're implementing Power BI in a company and use that as kind of like a starting point. So imagine this exam as if you just got a new BI analyst position and you are brought in as the subject matter expert. They're going to ask you conceptual questions like, hey, if you're going to create a Power BI report, what are some of the steps in there? They're not going to expect you to go in and be like, hey, we need you to create a complex parameter function that pulls a data set at the specific time frame from a specific table. This is a conceptual exam. So the complex functions you will encounter there. So you should read every single function and understand its, I guess, function. So once you understand it and read it one time, go over it one more time so that you really solidified it. That is as far as deep as you need to be going on this deep dive knowledge. Don't let this fear of I'm not going to be able to figure this out prevent you from going to the exam.
Good tip.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, I see Greg shared also a good resource for DAX.
Yes, the elements of DAX. I think the first few chapters really help you understand why and what DAX is doing. Again, this test is not a DAX test. I remember getting 1 or 2 questions that said, can you, here is a DAX function. Can you put some of these like sub functions together to get, a final result? And so you were pulling from like a library of, certain functions to do something. That was probably one of the harder questions.
I think that's another piece that maybe we haven't touched on, the whole concept of filtering and context filtering, row filtering, all of that. And I've actually gone through the CSG Pro DAX classes, and really it'll help you get an initial strong grasp of the context filtering.
Whatever you do, don't click on Gregory's link while you're unmuted.
Unless you like that little jingle we got.
Yeah.
Stuck in my head.
All right. Any other questions? I don't see, there is so much content in the chat. I will try to copy all that I can from it and share with everybody, because I see a lot of great resources there. Any other questions that I'm missing or someone wants to ask? Any experience to share? Any final thoughts from the members?
Kevin, what's for dinner?
I see Tom wants to ask something.
You're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah, I
got back-to-backs, so my wife makes tacos.
When will the be,
will all be over?
Be available, the recording?
Oh, the recording? Yes, I will make it available soon, and we'll post it in the YouTube channel.
Okay.
I need first all the okays from the members.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh yeah, yep, it's all good.
Okay.
I read it as if we had a problem, respond back, so that's why I didn't respond back.
Yes, because we had a lot of attendees from a different time zone, and they were asking if we were recording this. But since I wanted to ask permission to each first, I sent out a last-minute email, but I didn't have the responses. So if anyone has any problem with sharing, let me know in private. That's okay. I can edit too. I was thinking of editing the Mike's photo, right? I can put it.
Actually, that's a pretty good photo.
Like,
that's a good photo of me. I think we'll just keep that. That's.
Yeah, I sent you 2 hours ago. I sent you a message through LinkedIn, but I guess you didn't see it.
Oh, I didn't see it. Yeah, I was busy. So yeah.
I was I don't have a picture. Maybe he doesn't want to be public, so I was like, okay, let's respect that and put the anonymous.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I'll get you something. Sorry about that.
All right. If there are no more questions, I want to thank all of you, the members first of the study group. Amazing. You're sharing this with the community and encouraging others, right? And thank you everybody for being here. And unless you want to hang out, or I can leave this open, or if you have any final thoughts, any final questions.
Thank you for the hard work, Cecilia.
All right, guys.
Yes,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.